This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
North Carolina Tar Heels football. Welcome to this ACC Nation preview with Max Sloan, writer and editor at Tar Heel Blog. That's Will Ojanen. I'm Jim Quist. Thanks for joining us, Max.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Heads up, we typically take first-timers and run them through a little thing to find out what type of food they like, what restaurants are their favorites, where do they want to go on game day. That way it helps out people who are listening who may say, hey, I've never been there. Maybe that's a great place to go. I'll check that out. For sure. It's just, we're kind of foodies. So,
yeah.
That's our nerdy side, among other things, that and drinking lots of beer. So, and good beer at that. So let's there we go. Let's do a thumbs up for the win, thumbs down for a loss, and as Will likes to say, somewhere in between. In case the game could go either way, let's start out with our schedule and take a look at each one of these games and see what you think is going to happen here with North Carolina as we go into a very intriguing first year under Bill Belichick. Darth Hoodie resides in Chapel Hill. Monday, September 1st, it's a Labor Day game. This is a big game just because of where it's been placed on the schedule. And it will be a little bit of a challenge. It'll be on ESPN, 8 o'clock that evening on Monday again, September 1st. It's at home. North Carolina is taking on TCU. This is potentially a real good challenge game right up front. What do you think?
Definitely. I think it's an exciting game to start with. A Big 12 team that has been in the playoff infinitely more recently than Carolina has. And especially given that Coach Belichick is coming in and we're going to get to see his team for the first time. I think it's really great to start with a team, to borrow a kind of pejorative phrase, with a pulse. Obviously TCU is a team that can push you. They can play with just about anybody. And I think it's going to be really, really fascinating. They definitely surged at the end of last season. I'm hesitant to put much stock in the results of last season just because of the way things are now and how different teams look year over year. But they won 6 of their last 7, and then the Heels went 3-3 over their last 6, with their last 3 being losses. So definitely different trajectories to end the seasons, respectively. I think I'm going to, given that it's in Chapel Hill, and I think that folks will be amped for Coach Belichick's first game on the sidelines, I'm going to start with a thumbs up because, the offseason is for dreaming the big dreams. So
we cannot allow the Big 12 to ruin Bill Belichick's debut in the ACC. Just
so true.
It's not something that we're going to allow. So it's a thumbs up for TCU. The next game will be on a Saturday and very close behind, and that's at Charlotte. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I think even on a short week, I think on paper the talent differential is a little too much for Charlotte to overcome. I'm going to say thumbs up. Notably, one of the quarterbacks that was involved in the quarterback battle coming into last season for the Tar Heels, Connor Harrell, is now involved, I believe, in a quarterback battle at Charlotte. So we'll get to see a familiar face there. And it's always good to go on the road to these kind of in-state smaller schools and just, play in their house, because usually folks come to us. So it's good to go on the road and test our mettle.
It's a little bit of a if it's in Charlotte, it's a home game. So
you would hope so. Just kind of
saying, on Saturday, September 13th, it's UNC taking on the Richmond Spiders. That game is going to be on the ACC network at 3:30 in the afternoon. This is always Richmond. year in, year out can be a thorn in people's sides. But I don't see this as a problem for North Carolina this year. What are your thoughts?
I certainly hope not. Personally, I'm scared of spiders. I don't mess with them. It is an FCS team. They're moving up to the Patriot League, I believe, this year, and they went 10-3 last year. So a solid FCS team. But I think still the talent differential, kind of similar to Charlotte, will be a little bit too much to overcome. At least that's what I'm hoping. They give that one a thumbs up as well.
All right. This next game may be a little bit more of a challenge. It depends. I I kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks each year with UCF. So I'm not really sure what to think of this game. North Carolina takes on UCF at UCF.
Yeah, it's fascinating. This game specifically, I almost wish that Mac Brown was still coaching Carolina, simply because then you have a matchup of the once and future Tar Heel coach and the once and future UCF coach in Scott Frost. Um, it would just be an interesting little storyline to follow. I still think that Coach Frost does have his work cut out for him there. I think they have been in a bit of a valley, and I think the Heels, that's probably a thumbs up as well. Hopefully.
Well, this is starting out to be a great start. It's potentially, based on your thoughts so far, we're 4-0. So that's a good place to be. Even at worst, it could be maybe 3-1, but still a good place to be at this point in the season. There's a break coming up after the UCF game, which is probably good because this allows everybody to start looking at video on Clemson and getting an idea of just exactly what is in the kitchen sink that they're going to be throwing at you. There's a lot there, a lot. So on Saturday, October 4th, it's North Carolina, and Clemson gets to come to Chapel Hill. So that could be a little bit of an advantage, and anything is better than nothing.
Certainly, you take every edge you can in a game like that, definitely. I full disclosure, I have a bit that I really enjoy doing, mostly in the Tar Heel blog, kind of internal Slack, but it sometimes leaks onto the blog as a whole, where every offseason I will talk myself into the Tar Heels going undefeated, winning the national title, everything like that. This is the first question you've asked me, the first game that we've come across that has had that devil on my shoulder that's saying, yeah, do it, go for it, really keep giving the thumbs up. But you were kind enough to invite me on your program, and you deserve better than that. So, you know, Clemson has all the appearances of kind of returning to their form as a fully functioning war machine. It's a worrying thing for other ACC teams, obviously, but the changes that they've made in the offseason have been indicative of kind of a willingness to embrace the changing landscape of college football as a whole. So I think four games into the season, we'll know what Clemson looks like, and we should have a better idea of what Carolina looks like. And I think those are going to be, at least at the beginning in this first year under Coach Belichick, I think those are going to be pretty different things. I think we'll see a program back at the height of their powers, compared to a program that is trying to turn it around. I don't see, I mean, the only argument I could make for Carolina, and that's what I'm here to do, is that if there is a coach that, given his history, I would trust to find a way to make a game like this muddy and give his team a chance, I think Belichick would be very near the top of the list, if not the very top. So, there is hope there, but I don't think hope is enough to really pick Carolina in this one. I think this is our first thumbs down on the schedule.
So what do they say? Hope is not a strategy. So
they do say that. Wonder why.
Well, I mean, you do bring up a good point here. Bill Belichick is a savvy guy, and even though a lot of people say, well, it's difficult to make the conversion from NFL into college. There's a lot of stuff that he can bring with him that he can implement and he knows how to deal with making changes in real time in a game. So that is an advantage that I think that he may have over an awful lot of people. He may be seeing stuff in that real time scenario that a lot of coaches just can't seem to get out of their own way sometimes. But he is in a situation where he can just kind of look at it and go, oh, so we need to throw this at them and see if that works. Now, whether or not he's got the personnel to do it, that's the question, or whether Clemson has the personnel to stop it. So it'll be interesting to watch Bill Belichick and Dabo Swinney go kind of head to head. Maybe not so much this year, but you'll get a taste of it. I'm looking forward to the next year because I think that's where you really start to see the craziness that will occur, especially if Belichick has a good year and his recruiting is hot. So see what happens.
Definitely.
So there's a break after this game too. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen: a break before and a break after. But hey, I don't set the schedule. Exactly. The next game up Friday, October 17th. So quite a bit of difference there. In UNC is going to be at Cal. They're going out to the West Coast. Thoughts on that game?
I think it's good that there's a break prior to this game, simply because we have to travel across the country. The Heels have to go on the road to Berkeley. I bet Berkeley is gorgeous in middle October. I'm sure it'll be, very pleasant and really pop on TV. I'll not be there, but I'll be watching, from my couch. I think I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe this is the first time in the new ACC landscape that the Heels are making that trip out to the West Coast. They dodged it last season. They were no further than Will's backyard in Minneapolis. So it'll be really interesting to see how the team responds to that cross-country travel. It's not something they've done before. It's something that Coach Belichick has done before. He's taken teams from the East Coast to the West Coast on a weekly basis for probably the majority of his career. And travel things aside, from a purely football perspective, I don't know that Cal is going to be climbing out of their valley that they were in last season. I mean, it's tough to in such a historically bad season for Florida State that they were the one ACC win for the Seminoles, and lost a bunch of really, really close games, heartbreakers. The game day game against Miami, as well, a little bit later in the season. It's tough, and I don't know that they have the talent on paper to keep up with the Heels. I was reading something that Bill Connolly wrote for ESPN, and it looks like it's almost a dead heat in terms of returning production between the Tar Heels and Cal. But the level of that production, I think, is going to be the main difference. One other weird thing, I think this game is a thumbs up. Getting back, I don't know if I gave a thumbs up. Oh yeah, it was Clemson. Definitely, I gave a thumbs down for that. It's one more weird thing about this game that I noticed as part of prepping for this. This, I think, is the only ACC team, the only conference foe for the Tar Heels that they have never beaten. So that'll be an interesting, hopefully, chance to snap a streak there in October, but we shall see.
Yeah, can I just interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on this game real quick. Will you be staying up to at least 1:30 a.m. for the conclusion of this game?
Oh, without a question. Yeah, I'm a night owl. It's I always watch the the sicko late night Hawaii games when I'm able to. So yeah, I'll be tuned in for sure.
I like how you put that, the sicko. It's
yes.
This
yes.
game starts at
Exactly.
10:30. I can see we have a gathering of like-minded people here, and it's really disturbing. So there's if you're watching or listening to this and you suddenly feel yourself slipping away, you'll understand why. This game will be on ESPN. Starts at 10:30 Eastern time. Wow. Yeah, you will be up late. Next game up, North Carolina. And it's the wine and cheese party. Virginia comes to visit, and they're going to be in Chapel Hill, and it might. I don't really know what to think of Virginia so far. I mean, we haven't previewed them yet, but I mean, there's so many, I think, negative thoughts surrounding this team for a variety of reasons. Some of them good, some of them not so good. This is a type of game that would concern me, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's the type of game that a team comes in. They've had this competition going on for ever and a day. And these two teams, they love to go at each other. This is the type of game that you go, yeah, I'm going to keep a close eye on this one because Virginia, let's not count them out. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think it was a few seasons ago that Carolina was on an absolute tear and then went and dropped an inexplicable game at Virginia. It seems to kind of come up from time to time, and if you're rolling into this 5-1 with a loss to Clemson, even 4-2, and you're feeling really good, and then you just get kind of rattlesnaked, and Virginia will pop up and put it to you. It's it's hard to predict. I mean, this whole exercise from a Carolina perspective is almost impossible to predict, which people will learn if they go back after the season and look at what I've said and say, "Oh man, he missed the mark on almost everything." It's a weird kind of flux that we find ourselves in, and I think some of that is the new normal of college football, and some of that is Bill Belichick coming to town, and we don't know how it's going to turn out. It's interesting that you bring up that kind of mid-season slump. I had picked one of those, but it wasn't the Virginia game. I think given the recent history of Virginia popping Carolina in the midst of a pretty good season, I think that the team would be up for it. I'm going to give it a thumbs up, kind of tentatively. I think that Virginia has more questions even than Carolina does. And they have some things to answer.
Indeed. Okay. Next game up is North Carolina travels north to Syracuse. This will be a cold one. It'll be on ESPN, 7:30 on a Friday night. So they're getting some good prime time on TV this season.
Yeah. This is the game that I had circled as the trap game.
Yeah.
This season, this schedule for Carolina has been very friendly. We dodge a bunch of really heavy hitters in Louisville, Miami, maybe a resurgent Florida State. We don't see any of them on the schedule, which is great. But this game is on Halloween, right? At Syracuse. That is monstrous. That's ghoulish. I like Fran Brown a lot. I think the team will be ready. They wear orange. It's Halloween. I think their student section will be absolutely rocking. I think this is the one where the normal, at least in recent history, normal mid-season slump kind of comes home to roost for Carolina. So I'm gonna say thumbs down on this one. That way nobody can accuse me of being too much of a homer.
Uh, you said earlier about making choices and regretting and looking back. Don't worry, we go through that every year. It's the same thing, we don't worry about it one way or the other.
Oh yeah,
it's just, hey, that's the pick I made, but that was then. This is now. So anyway, next one up is North Carolina. Stanford is coming to town. So we had North Carolina going out to the West Coast. Now the West Coast is coming to the East. So this is this could be an interesting game. Frank Reich in his group out there, there's stuff quietly going on behind the scenes. So a team maybe again here is one of those games to keep an eye on too.
For sure. Yeah, I think uh the storylines kind of write themselves with Frank Reich now coming back to Carolina. He's working with Andrew Luck instead of a rookie Bryce Young, which is probably a better look for him. Even if it's on kind of an interim basis, I still think he's a good coach. He didn't cover himself in glory in Charlotte, but I don't think a lot of that was at his feet. Um, the Andrew Luck effect is hard to overstate too with Stanford. I th I think they're on the right path. My only question is how long of a time frame are they looking at? Are they going to be back in a major way this year? Because if so, then this game could get really dicey for Carolina. But um, I don't know that they have the personnel in place to really, absorb these changes, which I fully realize is rich coming from someone talking about the Tar Heels, given that we have so much change going on and whether or not we have the pieces to put in place to bridge that gap. But uh, I think that, given that it's at home, um, given that they are starting from, I think, a deeper valley than Carolina is in this rebuild, I'm going to say it's a thumbs up, but it's a shaky one for sure.
So at this point, the Tar Heels should be bowl eligible based upon what we're looking at so far.
I would love that. That would be fantastic for me.
The next three games are all basically home, no matter how you look at this. The first game, they're going to be at Wake Forest. So, it's a little ways down 40. So, what can I say? Yeah, it's not that far to go, but it's always, good competition. Wake Forest is not the same as they were under Dave Clawson. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think, I was sad to see Dave Clawson go. I really had a lot of respect for him as a coach, and it's always fun when Wake is feisty. Uh, and his nothing made me, I think, more anxious in the world of college football than his slow mesh offense at Wake Forest. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just every time the handoff took 7 years, and that was 7 years off of my life. But uh, they were always fun to watch, and I'm interested in what happens next for Wake. I'm worried that there is a reason that he left the way he did, kind of a writing on the wall situation. I think that they're not, I think they might struggle this year. Um, I think it's tough to win sustainably at Wake Forest. They have a lot of challenges being a private university and in North Carolina where there's a lot of, football school like teams that are all, vying for the same in-state talent. You have UNC, Carolina, Duke, State. I said UNC and Carolina. UNC, State, Duke, App State, ECU. I mean, their programs. Campbell is pulling a lot of guys that Wake Forest wants as well. So it's a tough place to win. And given that they have the potential to bottom out, I'm going to say this is a thumbs up. But I will be watching with interest because I think it's better when the North Carolina schools, I might be biased, but I think it's better when the North Carolina schools are all good and feisty and mixing it up.
Here we go. We get closer and closer to home with the final two games. Um, Duke throws a stone and shows up in Chapel Hill. So this could be a competitive game. Um, Duke has certainly come a long way since Mike Elko took over, and then we moved on. This team has potential. Some of it is on paper. It's a struggle to get the people in the door sometimes, but nonetheless, Duke is there. And when you put Duke and North Carolina head to head for anything, it is just fun time.
It is, and it's a lot more fun when your team wins those things. Growing up in Chapel Hill, I had a lot of Duke and State fans as close friends for most of the year. In March, not so much, and then in the one weekend in the fall when we were diametrically opposed. But uh, I will preface my thumb movement by saying this. I think Manny Diaz is a great coach. I think he is, going to continue kind of the framework, the momentum that Mike Elko built. I am a big Texas A&M fan currently because they hired Mike Elko and he's no longer in Durham, so that's a good thing for me and for Carolina. Uh, but I will never put my thumb down. I will forever pick Carolina to beat Duke. I hope they lose every game by 30 points. Um, I think they'll have a good season. I didn't take many notes about this because I knew I couldn't physically put my thumb down in this case. I think it'll be a good game, regardless. The actual analysis is that I think Manny Diaz and Coach Belichick on the sidelines. I think it'll be fireworks, like you said.
And the last game of the season, it's North Carolina and NC State, which is always a battle. Gee whiz, Chapel Hill to Raleigh now. So, just again, throwing a rock up the road sort of thing. This could be a little bit more competitive. NC State is definitely not lacking for talent. This is a critical season, I believe, and I've said this on previous podcasts, that I think Dave Doeren needs to deliver here. And if he loses to North Carolina, I think this could be daggers, perhaps. So, thought on this last game of the season as we see it, unless there's a complete run through the entire schedule and you end up in the ACC championship.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would predict a complete run through the schedule and an ending in the ACC championship. Please see my blog in a couple weeks. NC State is an interesting case. Dave Doeren specifically is an interesting case. I think it was on your Georgia Tech preview that Kelly, who you had on, compared Dave Doeren to a cockroach, and it tramples all of my editorial instincts to modify or change any kind of that kind of perfect distillation. So I won't touch that any further. I think Carolina's lost four straight to State. A lot of folks on the Carolina side like to say it's not a rivalry, given that Duke is our natural rival in the wild. But and I also like to poke that particular beehive from time to time. So I will not make a statement on whether or not it is a rivalry, but it is a game I would like to win. And this game is on my birthday, and I really can't think of a better birthday gift than for Coach Belichick to eat Dave Doeren's lunch for the last game of the season. So I think the talent is always there. Like you said, it's interesting how it manifests, and sometimes they have really good years only to have an improbable skid at one point, or they'll come in losing multiple games straight and then get up for the Carolina game and just have an answer for questions that we didn't even ask yet. So it'll be really interesting to see how it goes. This will be a kind of I think a harbinger of things to come. If you have Dave Doeren, who has been at State for so long, and then Coach Belichick, who's in his first season, the outcome of this game could color a lot of things, especially going into the offseason. And that'll be fascinating to watch. So I think I'm going to give it a thumbs up. A lot of the same reasons as the previous thumbs up, just because there's a physical disability that I have to turn it over in this specific case. But I think it'll be a good game as well, and it'll be a toss up, honestly. But I'm going to pull for the heels. It's July. What else are we going to do?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. We've got an interesting look at the schedule for North Carolina Tar Heels. Certainly feels like, and I don't think I could disagree with you on this. This team is improving. It's headed to a bowl. Now, what they do with a couple of these games, I think is going to be critical to how people view Bill Belichick and the program overall. If they come through with flying colors, that's good news for the recruiting. It's good news for the fans because they start having faith in the program. And so, it's all sky from there. We'll see what happens. Will, time to get into the X's and O's of offense and defense. Let's find out from Max what he's thinking is going on with the overall team.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Max. Obviously, you've listened to our previous pod, so I just like to focus on the on-field product. I'll leave the Belichick of it all to Jim. But last week we had Virginia Tech preview, and the guy mentioned, the 30 he had taken 30 transfers, and he needed a real cheater. Now, North Carolina took in 41, so I'm thinking you probably need a novel in that case to go over all the new players.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start on offense. Obviously, new coordinator, but someone familiar with North Carolina, Freddie Kitchens, who's been there for a couple of years now. He is now the offensive coordinator. What kind of offense is he going to run with this team?
I think with Coach Kitchens, you get a lot of run first. I think he wants to get the run game established. It's a shame that he was not the coordinator for Omarion Hampton, which we'll get into when we chat about running backs. But I think there's still kind of a stable there, and if he can scheme the run game to free up the passing game, I think that's what he would prefer to do. I think you get a lot of power football, and he wants to use that run game to suck the defense in and then throw over the top. That's the sense I get from kind of his style.
Okay, quarterback wise, we still really don't know what's going on with Max Johnson almost a year later. Given that, is Gio Lopez the front runner right now?
I think he is. I'm not convinced that that wouldn't be the case even if Max Johnson was fully back. And I feel awful for Max. He's had a rough go of it. He wins the starting job last season and then breaks his leg the first game against Minnesota. So it's tough even without the injury. I think Gio gives the offense another dimension. He's fast. I mean, he's got wheels, and that dual threat nature is not something that Max Johnson really excels at. So you have kind of a stylistic difference that I think favors things that uh, Coach Kitchen wants to do, given that he is an additive in the run game. He's a threat with his legs, so I think that gives him the edge. Um, but it's tough not knowing. I wish I'd had like the two deep in front of me because I could talk more specifically about these guys. But yeah, I think Gio Lopez is definitely the front runner, and then maybe Max Johnson as a second stringer, or depending on how Bryce Baker has come along, he's the 4-star guy that came in, true freshman. So we'll see. But I do think Gio is probably the presumptive starter at this point.
Well, you mentioned it a moment ago. Almost 1,700 yards rushing gone, on about 2,000 total yards gone, and Omari and Hampton. How are they going to fill that void in the backfield?
They're not. Uh, it's not really possible to fill the void left by a National Football League running back. Uh, I think there will be, you'll see, I think a running back by committee kind of approach. I think the first guy up is going to be Davion Gauss, who, spelled Omarion Hampton a couple times last season and acquitted himself well. I think he was averaging over 6 yards a carry. Or so. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that's the vibe I get from watching him. He is a pretty patient runner, and I think that's a good trait to have when you have kind of a O line that is assembled of different parts than there were there last year. But I think maybe from an holistic offensive point of view, I think you replace a once in a generation rushing talent by balancing the Russian passing game. And I think improved quarterback play is probably going to play a large role in that as well. Because you have more options with the ball teams don't just know that they can load the box and try to stop Amari and Hampton, as was the case a couple times last season. So I think it's probably more of a task for the team at large than it is just for the running back room. But there are a couple guys in there. Davian Gauss, like I said, there's a transfer from Michigan, Benjamin Hall, who didn't really put it together in the Big Ten, but is getting another chance. And then there's a drum I like to bang every year. It's redshirt senior Caleb Hood. Every year I pick him to be like my breakout guy, and he has not put it together yet. He's been hurt a lot, and he's got the tools. He passes the eye test. He just hasn't had a chance to really explode. So I think if you get two of those guys that really hit, um, I think you'll be at least some semblance of a good running game, which is not the elite running game that you had with the Los Angeles Chargers running back, but it'll still be, doable at the very least.
Well, there's the question at receiver slash tight end because six of the top seven receivers from last year are gone, and I mentioned it earlier. You're filling a lot of spots with transfers. So who do you see stepping up at receiver for the Heels this year?
Well, Kobe Paysor entered the transfer portal and then removed himself from the transfer portal and came back, which is going to be huge. I'm looking at it right here. I think the he was the fourth total yards receiving on last year's team. Omarion Hampton was third for what it's worth. So he was the guy in all respects. Um, I think Paysor is going to be kind of the leader in that room. He's one of the older guys, uh, and he's some continuity, which is great. He's been at Carolina for a while. But him and Chris Culliver are the only two upperclassmen that are in that room, at least in the wide receivers specifically. I think there are a couple older tight ends. But from a receiver's point of view, I think that leaves you looking for like a young transfer like Nathan Leacock to show up. He was at Tennessee and Purdue, I think, for a minute, and then is now in Chapel Hill. Or rising sophomores like Jordan Ship or Paul Billups. Pardon me. I think Jordan Ship specifically is a really toolsy guy, and if he takes that sophomore leap that you kind of you cross your fingers and hope for when guys finish their freshman year, that could be a real boon for the Tar Heel offense. The tight ends, like I said, they're interesting, but there's no known quantity, at least with Kobe Paysor and Chris Culliver to a lesser extent. You kind of have an idea of what they can do, but the tight ends are a big question mark in a team full of question marks. I know that I've heard folks talking about Shamar Easter, who was a really highly rated guy out of high school, but then kind of vanished when he got to his freshman year at Arkansas. It's hard to pick a tight end that's going to really show up in a major way. But given I know you said we're setting aside the Belichick of it all, but that man in the past has loved his tight ends. So if there is a diamond in the rough in that room, I trust that he'll find it. And I think that again, the improvement in quarterbacking play, from Jacoby Criswell, God bless him, to the current state of things, whether that's Gio, Max Johnson, Bryce Baker. I think that'll benefit the wide receivers as well.
Well, three starters back on the line. I've heard a lot of great things about Trevion Green at tackle. Is just a mammoth, but also bring in eight transfers. How much of that is competition and how much of that is just filling in with depth?
I think a lot of it is filling in the depth. I think you have guys that are settled at least as starters. But you have guys that can play a couple positions. I think Austin Blasky is one that he's been around for a while, but can move between. I think he was center last season and is probably slated to be a guard this season. And then obviously you're trying to fill in for Howard Sampson, who is off to Texas Tech, transfer out. So I think the coaching staff looks to bring in a lot of guys to find one or two that can backfill those holes. There were a couple of issues with the line writ large last season. Um, Pass pro broke down a couple times, which didn't do Jacoby Criswell any favors. But then Criswell held on the ball too long and didn't do his O line any favors. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation, at least in pass pro. But I think you're looking for like a Daniel King from Troy. He had a lot of experience in the Sun Belt, and I think he has a lot of snaps under his belt. So hopefully he's going to have the chops to, just step in an ACC situation and handle business. I think with everything else that's moving around, I think the O line is going to take time to gel. Certainly, I think you might see some hiccups in the first couple games, but that unit, if you can get the same guys to start on the O line for multiple weeks running, you start to see them kind of come together and pull in the same direction. And that's what I'm hoping for, is that if they can stay healthy, guys, newcomers can slot in, and you can build something that can at least be serviceable. It's not my highest worry on this team for sure.
Let's switch over to defense. And obviously, Bill has a defensive background. I mean, his son's the defensive coordinator. I'm sure Bill's going to have a little bit of say in some of it. But what kind of scheme are they going to run?
It's I was looking at some film earlier of Steve Belichick's defense at Washington, which I think is maybe the best indicator of what they're going to do. And it looked like they were working with a four-man front mostly, but there's a big emphasis in Chapel Hill on moving to a more pro style and kind of multiple defense, to where guys can move around and almost the concept of positionless basketball, but uh, in the defensive front and the defensive backfield. Um, I think, given that Coach Bill Belichick has such a background in his defenses in the pros being such a strength of his teams, I think you'll see a defense that is they hide a bunch of their coverages coming in. I think they'll sugar things so that you show blitz and then back out, and uh, you give offenses a different look from what you're actually running pre-snap. But I think that the defense will probably change a lot. Some of it by necessity, just by personnel. You lose, and we'll get into the more specific position groups, but you lose some decent talent up front, and that might change what you want to do as a coach in a defensive package. So it'll be interesting to see how the both in game and in season changes come across from Coach Belichick to Steve Belichick to the guys that they put on the field. But I think you'll see a lot of three down or four down linemen, and God, trying to stop the run. I hope will be. I hope, knock on wood, will be an emphasis.
When I was going through the defense and just kind of looking at some depth charts, I came to the conclusion that the only certainty about this defense is uncertainty. That line you mentioned, Bo Atkinson's gone now, but they bring in seven new players out of the portal. So who are the names that have stood out so far?
Um, on from the line, you see guys like Price Yates, who had a pretty good game against Carolina in the Pinstripe Bowl, I believe it was. Yeah, I think it was the Pinstripe Bowl. Man, the brain is a terrible thing to waste. He played for UConn, transfer in. He's an older guy, veteran kind of presence, or as veteran as you can be in college football, given the limitations on how long folks can play. There's another guy, CJ Mims from ECU, who I think the coaching staff is going to lean on pretty heavily in the front to be a gobble up runs and maybe even two gap in some cases. Um, but then you're looking in the backfield. You have Thaddeus Dixon. He's maybe the biggest, splashiest transfer in the corner to replace the departing Elijah Huzzy, who I think is fighting for a spot with the Texans currently. So that's a lot of talent to replace. But you have some guys coming in that are talented. You have some linebackers that seem really talented but haven't really proven anything yet. Kamori House has played at Washington with Steve Belichick, and he's, by all reports, he's incredibly athletic. Got a nose for the football, but is just not quite polished. And you hope that this coaching staff could polish a bunch of transfers like that, but it's not a sure thing. So the fact that we bring in so many, specifically on the line as well, you're trying to replace, like you said, Bo Atkinson, who was a very good producer and is now at an Ohio State University, and then Travis Shaw, who was an interior lineman who is off to Texas now. So two guys that go directly to contenders and are probably going to be seeing the field there. That's a lot to replace. So you bring in a lot of guys hoping that you find a diamond in the rough that can kind of backfill that.
You mentioned Kamori House, somebody who I've heard good things about in the portal. What are some other names to know at linebacker?
So Kamori House is going to be he's going to be seeing the field a lot. I hesitate to name anyone as a starter right now, just because I think there's going to be such a heavy rotation, specifically particularly at the beginning of the season, while the coaching staff tries to figure out what group works together best, and that's not necessarily the best player. Usually you want your best player to be part of that unit that works together well, but sometimes there's a unit that's greater than the sum of its parts. There's a Andrew Simpson is another linebacker that transferred in from Boise State. He's another older guy. He's been around forever, knows the position well. And then a grad transfer, Makai Bayer from Mizzou. Him and Simpson are the only two upperclassmen in the linebacker room. So you got a lot of young talent, but not a whole lot of it's proven. And then the guys like Simpson and Bayer, I think I've said his name 3 different times, so you can just cut that and drop the right one in. uh, uh, those two guys, they are who they are, but the young guys are going to be the biggest point of emphasis as to who comes along and can step up and be that guy. Maybe it's Kamori House. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's somebody else that's transferred in. There's so many of them that I don't have any other names in my notes, but it's going to be a platoon at the beginning, and then hopefully someone sets themselves apart.
In the secondary, and there's some names back that were contributors last year. A Marcus Allen, a Caleb Cause, a Will Hardy. But again, you mentioned some more transfers there too. Who else do we need to know in the secondary?
So Gavin Gibson is going to be a name to know. He's an older guy as well. He's coming in from ECU. He'll probably be safety or a nickel in the defense. I think he'll be a contributor for sure. And then, like you said, Will Hardy. Let me see. I'm gonna just look at the roster to see if there's anybody else that jumps off as one of the guys that have transferred in, and we're expecting big things from. Let's see. We love dead air on a radio show. Sorry about that. It's mostly Gavin Gibson that jumps off the tape. Because this is one of the position groups where we have the luxury of some returning production. Like you said, Marcus Allen was very good opposite Elijah Huzzy last year, and hopefully he'll take that next step to be the guy. He's older. He's an upperclassman, so he's had time in the system to learn things. Will Hardy is a senior who's been a Tar Heel the whole time, which is unusual. It's a novelty in this day and age, but he's a good one as well. And then you mentioned Caleb Koss. So I think the story of the secondary is actually more, and this is unusual for this team, but it's more about the returners than it is about the newcomers. Hopefully there are some newcomers that are coming in and making a difference and making a change, because limiting those explosive plays that the Tar Heels were so susceptible to last season. But yeah, I think the returners are going to be the unit will go as they go, I believe, and then Thaddeus Dixon, of course, being that other piece.
Before we get to the really important thing that I teed you up on at the very beginning of the podcast, I was reading a story earlier before we started the program that I found very amusing, just from my perspective, that said something along the lines of North Carolina media tired of being asked about Bill Belichick. So I literally was rolling when I read that, and I was just thinking, really? I mean, really? So I'm not going to ask you any questions about Bill Belichick, because quite frankly, anything and everything I I want to know or need to know. Quite honestly, it's been out there for a long time. So,
And more, even
yeah.
more than you ever wanted to know, probably.
And, I'll just say his girlfriend is very attractive and leave it at that. Okay, more power to you, dude. That's all I can tell you. All right, let's get to the important thing here. It has nothing to do with Bill Belichick. As I said, when you first come on this program, it's the first time you've been on. We won't always want to know what your favorite restaurant is, or what your favorite food is, or what you do for game day snackies. So share those words of wisdom with us there, Max.
Yes. So if I've seemed distracted at all throughout this process, it's been because I've been thinking about restaurants. There is a place, I'm a Chapel Hill townie. I grew up in Chapel Hill. So a lot of the places that I absolutely adore have either closed down or moved. There is a restaurant called Breadman's that it was long one of my favorites. It used to be in a building right off of Franklin Street, on Rosemary Street, so one block off. And when you walked in, it's like the walls were almost held up by Tar Heel Athletics posters from years past. They were probably 3 inches thick on the wall by the time that they closed that building down. And it has since moved to another location a little bit further off campus. But I would recommend, if you're in town, if you're in Chapel Hill, stop by Breadman's and get the blueberry pancakes because they are to die for. But that's not as feasible for like a game day meal. So I think I will be the most basic and recommend Sutton's Drugstore on Franklin. It is an old drugstore that is right in the heart of Franklin Street, walking distance from the stadium. And I would recommend getting an orangeade and one of their burgers. I believe it's called the Stockyard Burger that has, it's a burger with, I think, bacon and maybe one other kind of meat and a barbecue sauce. And it's really, really good. Get there early because they only have a few tops. You can sit at the bar, but it's an open grill, still a functioning drugstore, kind of a fossil from a bygone era, but a very good place. And you can look at the walls and see all the pictures of students and athletes and folks that have come through the door. So it's a neat spot and definitely a part of kind of Chapel Hill history, specifically downtown. So that would be my game day recommendation, I think.
Name of the place again?
Sutton's Drugstore.
Sutton's Drugstore. Yeah, character. I mean, that's what we always look for, So it sounds like it's got some good stuff too. Okay,
yep. The orangeade is if you get nothing else, get the orangeade. Or a chocolate shake. Hard to go wrong either way. But
or both. Why not?
Yeah, you got two hands.
That's right. Start out with one, finish with the other. Or do both.
Why not mix them? Orangeade chocolate shake.
There you go. Kind of like a twisted creamsicle.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, something that's ideal for Halloween.
Oh, don't make me think about Syracuse.
Oh man, good stuff. I'm going to have to look at these places up because, quite honestly, that's the first time I've ever had those recommendations shared. So
I got more. I got a gang of it. If you want them,
well,
I'll send you an email.
All right, fair enough. We always like food. Food is essential. And good food, good environment, good vibes. It all comes together. It all comes together, and sometimes in the most unexpected places. That's the experience, man. Love it. Thanks for sharing that with us, by the way. Hope a lot more people go in there. And by the way, if you do go in there, you make sure that you said, did you tell them Max told me to come in here? So next time that Max goes walking in, he is gifted with a free chocolate shake. Or hamburger.
Your lips to God's ears.
Sometime along those lines. This ACC Nation preview of North Carolina Tar Heels football with Max Sloan, writer and editor at Tar Heel Blog. Wonderful time. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. It's been enjoyable. A lot of great information, football, other stuff, and food. Never can go wrong there.
My
Max,
favorite
thank you, sir.
things.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, y'all. Appreciate it. Hope we'll talk soon.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.